Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking Bhagat Namdev, the legend and the scholar. We are going to dive deep into the fascinating, spiritually rich, and honestly pretty historically debated life of a figure who didn't just casually participate in a spiritual movement, he literally helped lay the very foundation for one that swept across the entire Indian subcontinent. You have to picture the 13th century in India. It was a time of immense social stratification, super rigid hierarchies, and this profound, widespread spiritual longing. And into this incredibly complex world steps a man who would completely challenge the very fabric of society. Now, whether you approach his life through the lens of deep faith and miraculous legends, or you look at it through the lens of rigorous, impartial historical analysis, there is simply no denying his immense and truly enduring impact.
So, here is our agenda for today. First, the universal Bhakti saint. Second, a life of devotion. Third, the power of poetry. Fourth, myths and modern scholars. Fifth, the enduring legacy. And finally, the 5 pillars of Namdev.
All right, Section 1, the universal Bhakti saint, bridging traditions across the Indian subcontinent. Born in 1270 CE, Namdev emerges a pivotal figure in the Bhakti movement during a time of really intense social and religious division. And what makes him incredibly unique in the annals of history is his truly universal acceptance. I mean, he is celebrated as a foundational pillar in the Hindu Varkari sect of Maharashtra, highly revered for his ecstatic devotion. But simultaneously, and quite remarkably, he's also revered as a holy Bhagat in the Sikh tradition hundreds of miles to the north. His message of universal brotherhood somehow managed to completely transcend the rigid, religious, linguistic, and social boundaries of medieval India. He became this ultimate unifying force in an era that was otherwise deeply divided.
Now, to really understand his impact, we've got to understand his core philosophy. To Bhagat Namdev, the path of bhakti, or devotion, wasn't about isolating yourself in some remote temple, and it definitely wasn't about performing complex, empty rituals dictated by an elite clergy. He taught that true spirituality is inherently bidirectional. What does that mean? It means devotion to the divine and deep active love for humanity are completely inseparable. You simply cannot claim to love the Creator if you don't actively love and respect your fellow human beings. For a society that was so obsessed with ritual purity, you can imagine this was a profoundly disruptive, yet incredibly liberating idea.
Moving right along to Section 2, a life of devotion. From Maharashtra to Punjab.
Let's look at where he came from. Namdev was born into a family of calico printers and tailors, which was known as the Chimba caste. Now, in the strict social hierarchy of 13th century India, this was considered a low caste. That means he faced severe, systemic discrimination from the very moment he was born. He was often strictly forbidden by the high caste clergy from fully participating in religious practices or even reading sacred texts. But instead of just accepting this exclusion, he completely transformed that struggle into a profound, egalitarian spiritual journey. He eventually traveled from the spiritual hub of Pandharpur in Maharashtra all the way up to Guman in Punjab, where he spent his final decades. Just to put that into perspective for a second, that is a grueling journey of over 1,500 kilometers on foot in medieval India. It's a stunning physical testament to his expansive spiritual growth and unyielding determination.
You've got to listen to this radical worldview. He said, one stone is lovingly decorated while another stone is walked upon. If one is a god, then the other must also be a god. This quote is just amazing. It perfectly captures his unyielding logic against hypocrisy. He was boldly challenging the orthodox establishment, championing the idea that the divine is absolutely omnipresent. Think about it. If the Creator is in absolutely everything, how can one stone be worshipped while another is trampled on? And getting to the real point here, how can one human being be elevated to a position of supreme authority just by birth while another is oppressed and silenced? Unlike a lot of ascetics of his era who retreated to the forests or the mountains to seek total isolation, Namdev championed the concept of Grishta Jivan, which basically means the life of a householder. He firmly taught that, hey, you didn't need to abandon society, your family, or your trade to find profound peace. Not at all. Enlightenment could be reached right there through family life and hard, honest labor. In fact, he continued his family's working-class trade of printing and tailoring cloth. He proved that divine connection happens in the everyday grind of the working person, not just in isolated meditation.
Okay, Section 3, the power of poetry. Abhangs, shabads, and kirtans. So Namdev didn't just preach to people, he sang. He captivated massive crowds through uninterrupted musical devotion, and honestly, the historical weight of that poetry just cannot be overstated. His verses were so universally profound and so perfectly aligned with the later teachings of the Sikh gurus that 61 of his hymns were actually immortalized in the Sikh holy scripture, the Guru Granth Sahib. Just wrap your head around that. To have a 13th century Marathi tailor's words enshrined in the sacred text of a major world religion centuries later, that speaks volumes about the timeless, boundary-breaking nature of his poetry.
And through his poetry, we actually get this incredible window into his mind. We get to witness his spiritual evolution happening in real time. He started his life practicing Sagun Bhakti, which means worshiping the physical idol of Lord Vitthala in a temple. But as he matured, he transitioned to Nirgun Bhakti. He began revering a formless, universal creator that resides equally within every single human being, completely untethered to any specific temple, mosque, or physical representation. His songs document a mind that is expanding far beyond the confines of physical walls and stepping into a truly universal consciousness.
Section 4. Myths and Modern Scholars. Navigating Legends and Historical Record. This brings up a really big question. How much of the legend is actual history? Because, when a figure becomes this monumental, history and hagiography inevitably intertwine. His life story is filled to the brim with incredible miracles that have been passed down through generations. There's the really famous legend at the Anda Nagnath Temple. The story goes that after high caste priests threw him out for his low status, the entire temple physically rotated its doors to face him as he sang. There's another dramatic account of a sultan threatening him with an elephant, demanding he revive a dead cow to prove his faith, a miracle the legends say he successfully performed, totally astonishing the empire.
However, this is where modern scholars step in, and they highlight some pretty significant historical controversies and inconsistencies. For instance, the absolute earliest biographical texts completely omit these supernatural elements. It wasn't until centuries after his death that writers actually began inserting these grand miracles into the manuscripts. Furthermore, scholars fiercely debate his exact birthplace. Some argue for Maharashtra, while others strongly point to northern India. They even debate the specifics of his caste background. Scholars note that subsequent writers often alter these biographical details just to fit their own social or political narratives in the centuries that followed his passing.
Which brings us to a really critical scholarly concept called anamnetic authorship. Scholars point out a massive controversy here. Out of the thousands of poems currently credited to Bhagat Namdev today, linguistic analysis suggests that perhaps only 600 to 700 are actually authentic. So why would so many be faked? Well, during later periods of extreme political turmoil, like regional conquest and intense societal repression, subsequent generations wrote their own songs of resistance, but they attributed them to Namdev to give their words divine authority and, crucially, protection from persecution. Basically, his name became a shield for those trying to speak truth to power.
So, we are left to impartially balance these two very valid perspectives. On one side, the faithful revere the miracles, maybe not necessarily as literal history, but as powerful metaphors for God's omnipresent power and the ultimate protection of the oppressed. Meanwhile, on the other side, historians analyze the shifting, interpolated manuscripts to really understand how Namdev's memory was actively used by society to navigate centuries of cultural shifts and political upheaval. The thing is, both lenses, the devotional and the historical, they both give us a profound understanding of exactly why he is so important to the fabric of India.
Let's head into Section 5, The Enduring Legacy, Uniting Diverse Communities.
Honestly, his inner circle might just be his greatest real-world miracle. In a society that was so strictly segregated by caste, class, and gender, Namdev built a radically inclusive community. I mean, look at his congregational singers. They included a dancing girl, a barber, a maid, a so-called untouchable poet, and a high-caste Brahmin yogi. They sat together, they sang together, they ate together, and they sought the divine together. He didn't just preach equality from a safe distance, he lived it out loud. He created a micro-society of absolute equality that defied literally every rule of the medieval world.
And that's why today, millions still honor his memory. His spiritual presence forms a very tangible bridge across India. He is deeply memorialized in the bustling temple town of Pandharpur in the west, where pilgrims still gather in droves to sing his songs, and simultaneously, he's honored in the serene village of Guman in the north, where a magnificent shrine stands in his honor. It just goes to prove that his powerful message of equality completely outlasted the rigid, discriminatory society he was originally born into.
All right, we've made it to Section 6. 5 Pillars of Namdev, summarizing the saint. Let's distill all of this complex history into 5 essential takeaways. Number 1, his universal appeal. He bridges major faiths, uniting disparate traditions.
Number 2, his demand for radical equality. He challenged deeply entrenched caste discrimination head-on. Number 3, householder spirituality. He validated the everyday life, proving enlightenment absolutely belongs to the working class. Number 4, his poetic genius. He left an immortal musical legacy that is literally still sung today. And number 5, he remains a fascinating subject of scholarly debate, which, when you think about it, is a true testament to how vibrantly his memory has lived on through the centuries.
I want to leave you with this final thought. We so often look at history as a closed record of the past, right? But figures like Bhagat Namdev, they hold up a very clear mirror to our present. Because whether you view him through the lens of pure faith or through rigorous history, his courageous call to see the divine in absolutely everyone, regardless of their background, their job, or their social standing, is a totally timeless challenge. It's a challenge we are, frankly, still trying to meet today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.